Welcome to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast brought to you by Success Without Sacrifice. I am your host and coach, Cheree, and here on the podcast, we are on a mission to revolutionize the way women in insurance do business. We will be interviewing women who are changing the face of insurance, as well as giving you tips and inspiration to grow your agency to new heights without sacrificing what is most important to you. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast. This week, I'm Cheree, your host, and today I'm coming at you with another solo episode. And I want to talk about a topic that I am really, really passionate about, and that is preventing and overcoming burnout. And if you listen to our very first episode where we talk about the podcast and who we are here at Success Without Sacrifice, you probably heard a little bit of my story, but if you have not listened to that, I'll give you just a little bit of my background, and then I will refer you back to that first episode to get more details if you would like. So I had mentioned in that episode that I would be telling you a story about an athlete that I worked with, an athlete that should have been an Olympic gold medalist. And so for those of you who don't know me, if you don't know my background, I worked with high-performing athletes for 14 years. I have a master's degree in sports psychology, and I loved what I did until I got burnt out. And as I became an entrepreneur, I also experienced burnout as a stay-at-home mom, as an entrepreneur, and I also saw burnout happen in athletes. And in athletes, it's actually called overtraining syndrome. In my master's degree, this is a topic that I studied a lot. I actually almost did my dissertation. I don't think it's a dissertation, whatever it's called when you do your master's degree. I can't think of it right at this moment, but I almost did it on overtraining syndrome. And so basically, what overtraining syndrome is, um, in the athletic world is when an athlete their performance starts to decrease, they're not sleeping well, they lose their appetite, they can't figure out what's wrong. There's no like rhyme or reason, nothing like happened necessarily. It's just all of a sudden their bodies are just tired and exhausted and not performing well. And we see the same thing happen within business owners. So as I enter the business world, I experienced this myself. And I saw other business owners experiencing this as well. So let's first just talk about some signs and symptoms of burnout, whether that's in you or a team member. Or somebody around you. Symptoms of burnout include lack of motivation, decreased performance, feeling apathetic. You may have pain or symptoms in your body that you can't explain. Could be autoimmune, could be just chronic pain that doesn't seem to go away no matter what you do, fatigue, feeling like you're exhausted, you need to take a nap, really irritable and annoyed, whether that's with your team members, yourself, your family, maybe. Those are all signs of burnout or signs that you're getting to burnout. And so as high achievers, high performers, whether you're a business owner or an athlete, we are all very goal oriented, right? We set our sights on something and we will do whatever it takes to hit that goal, sometimes to our detriment. And it's not, nobody goes into business or nobody becomes an athlete thinking I'm going to sacrifice, my life and my health and my relationships to hit this goal. No, it just happens over time. You a lot of times don't even realize what's going on or why it's happening. So I want to just take you back, 10 years ago to an athlete that I worked with and just give you an idea of why I am so passionate about this and why I'm so passionate about helping high performing women, kind of where my background comes from. So, in my master's degree, I had actually learned how to create a training plan for athletes. So as athletic trainers, we take care of injuries, we can help with performance, but we're not really involved in the training plan process necessarily. But because of my master's degree, I did have a background in creating training plans for athletes. So, a training plan, what that means in the athletic world is it has to do with the different seasons and ebbs and flows um, within athletics. So, for a um, typical like sport, like football, let's say, they have a off season, a preseason, an in season, or a post or a peak season. Now, when we're talking about Olympic athletes, this looks a little bit different. And I like to talk about Olympic athletes because it's the long haul, it's a long stretch. Typically, for Olympic athletes, they have decided when they were younger that they want to become an Olympic athlete. And so it takes 4 years to train. There's a lot of different competitions and qualifications that you have to get to before you can even make the Olympic team. So I worked with an athlete who, when he was 16 years old, he decided that he wanted to be on the Olympic team. He wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. By the time I had met him, he was a sophomore in college. And by the time I came into the picture, his body was already starting to break down. He already had multiple surgeries. He was in the athletic training room every single day because his body was exhausted, and he had just been training for so long. His body was starting to break down, but he was still very, very good. He was at the top of the competition. He would win every single one of his competitions. It just usually wasn't even a question of whether or not he was going to beat his competition. And he peaked right around his junior year, to the point where he went on and went on to nationals, ended up qualifying to try out for the Olympic team. And when he made the Olympic team, he started training with the Olympic team. So between his junior and his senior year, instead of resting during the summer when the rest of the team was resting, he was working out with the Olympic team and thought that if he worked out and the harder he pushed and the more he worked out, that would get him closer to his goal. And what happened was he came back his senior year and he came in and he was like, Cheree, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm exhausted. I can't sleep. I don't have an appetite. My performance is decreasing. I just feel like something's just off. Something's not right. And so we started analyzing the supplements that he was taking. We were analyzing his nutrition, and we were analyzing everything that he was doing. And we had realized that he had been training all summer with this Olympic team. So now I was not a part of his training plan, unfortunately, and I wish I would have met him when he was 16 years old, and I would have had the knowledge that I did. Um, because what happened was he had an amazing coach, a phenomenal coach. The reason he chose to come to the college that I was at was because of the coach and because of their training program, because they were always at the top of the league. They always won conference championships, and they were very, very good. The problem is there was no gradual increase in performance and expectations. So what would happen, and I started to see this happen, and a lot of the swimmers that would come in, not just this one particular swimmer, but they would come in their freshman year, and the freshmen and the sophomores would do the same quantity of training as the juniors and seniors. So they come from high school and they go into college, and basically the training is doubled. The intensity is doubled. And swimmers, they train in the morning, and they also train in the afternoon. So they train twice a day. On top of that, they're students, and the intensity has increased. And taking rest for swimmers is like, if you had to pull them out of the water for like even a day to like rest their bodies, they did not like it, right? And we're the same way as business owners. Like, ask us to rest as a high performer. Are you kidding me? We don't rest, right? We don't have time to rest. So what happened was most of the athletes would peak their sophomore, junior year. And then by the time their senior year came around, their bodies were starting to break down and their performance started to break down because they had been pushing their bodies for so long. They didn't have enough rest within their 4-year span. And so with Olympic athletes, the athletes who become the Olympic gold medalists are the ones that have the right coach, the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right training plan. Because if they don't have the right training plan, they will either peak too soon, which is what was happening in these swimmers. They were instead of peaking and being at the top of their game their senior year, they were peaking their sophomore and their junior year. The same thing can happen in, say, basketball season, March Madness, for those of you who know about March Madness. The goal is to get the athlete to peak during March Madness. During the tournament time is when you want athletes to be peaking. And in order to get athletes to peak at that right time, there has to be intention within the seasons. There has to be enough rest designed within their day, their week, their month, and within the year of their sport, whatever that looks like. So with this particular swimmer, I had mentioned he decided when he was 16 that he wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. And when his sophomore, junior year, I remember he would joke with me because I was pregnant, and he would say, "Cheree, if I win an Olympic medal, will you name your firstborn child after me?" And I was like, I am not committing to that because I knew he had the potential. I knew he had the skill set. I knew he had the mindset. I knew that he had the drive and the potential. And so I said, if you win an Olympic gold medal, we'll talk about naming the middle name after you. We'll talk. But I was nervous to make that commitment because I knew he had the potential to do it. So when he came back his senior year, and after analyzing everything, we realized that he was in overtraining syndrome, the equivalent of burnout in business. And he finished out his senior year. He did pretty well. He wasn't blowing his competition out of the water. It became a question of whether or not he was going to win his races. And the competition didn't change. Um, his body could not continue to push anymore. He ignored the signals that his body had been giving him, and he kept just pushing, pushing. So I think we can all resonate with this as business owners, right? We ignore the signs and the symptoms in our body when our bodies are saying we need rest, or we're emotional, or we ignore, and we push until we hit these goals. So senior year passes, Olympic trials come, and he misses the Olympic team by it was like 0.08 seconds or something. It was basically the touch of a hand. It was 2 seconds less than his personal best. 2 seconds less than his personal best. His personal best, he was at his peak. He was at his prime, his junior year. That was his peak. Had he competed, had he had tried out for the Olympic team that year, he would have made the Olympic team, no question. And we knew that based on his numbers. But because he had pushed his body and he didn't give his body the adequate amount of rest that it needed, uh, he did not reach his goal. He did not make the Olympic team. He got to try out, and that was the end of it. And he had even told me his senior year, he was like, "Cheree, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try out, but I'm done after this. If I make the team, I make it, and if I don't, I don't, and I'm done." He just couldn't. He had pushed his body for so long. He couldn't do it anymore, mentally or physically. And honestly, physically for athlete, it's more of a physical issue, can be mental too. For business owners, it's more mental and emotional, but it can also produce physical symptoms. So if you were feeling pain, unexplainable pain that didn't come from a specific injury or an accident in your body, that is a sign to pay attention. if you are irritable, if you are frustrated, if you are finding yourself just feeling off or apathetic or just something's not right, that's a sign that you need to pay attention. Okay. So I want to give a couple tips um, for, okay, you're like, yes, this is me. I'm feeling this way, but what do I do about it? So just a couple tips that we're going to talk about. One, when we talk about preventing burnout, uh, really to prevent burnout, if you're already having symptoms, you're past the point of prevention, right? That's overcoming, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But I want to back up for a second. If you are not there yet, maybe you can see yourself getting there. Maybe you have a hard time turning your brain off of work. Maybe you feel stressed in your body, or you're not even sure what stress feels like. You have the opportunity to prevent burnout. Okay, so ways to prevent burnout. Number one, and really prevent burnout and overcome burnout, the steps can be the same. They both apply, but we're going to dig in a little bit deeper into what it means to actually overcome. So, prevention, overcoming burnout, a couple, just four kind of general tips. Number one, create seasons of rest and peak performance within your business. So look at the trends of your business. When are your normal busy seasons and when are your normal slow seasons? And take advantage and be really intentional about each of those seasons. So when we talk about a training plan for an athlete, when I talk about that, I'm talking about they have down to every single day, week, month, quarter, what their training plan is going to look like, when they have rest days, what kind of nutrition they're eating, what kind of lifting they're doing in each season. So with the ramp method, which I've talked about in the first episode. If you're not familiar with that, go back and listen to episode number one and familiarize yourself with that. But basically, the ramp method stands for rest, align, master, peak. So in the rest season, it's being really intentional about giving your body rest. It doesn't mean you're doing nothing. It doesn't mean you're shutting your business down. Okay. It just means you are that season, that slow season is intended to help you and your team rest. That could mean going on vacation. It could mean getting off earlier. It could mean having a couple days off a week. There's all sorts of different ways to do this. Okay. And then the align season is equivalent to the preseason in sports. So in sports, the preseason is really building foundational skills to move into the competition phase. So they're building foundational skills. They're learning to work as a team. It's a lot of kind of busy work. And then moving into the in season. So this is the equivalent of the master phase in the ramp method. And in sports, this is the competition phase, and this is where mindset becomes really, really important. They've already built up the skills, they already know how to work as a team. Now it's really about mindset. And we're going to talk more about mindset in some upcoming episodes, but really getting clear on what are you saying yes to and what are you saying no to. In the season, align season, you know what your values are and your priorities. And so when you get into the master season, you know what to say yes to and what to say no to. And you're really intentional about the systems and the processes that you need to have in place in order to move into your peak season, which is the busiest season. So in sports, we talked about the peak season is the post competition, the tournament. This is where you want to peak. In business, the peak season is your revenue. This is where the most revenue is coming into your business just because of the natural busy season of your industry. Preventing and really overcoming burnout. So number one tip is create seasons of rest and peak performance for your business. Look at the trends of your business and what the natural ebbs and flows are and figure out how you can create seasons of rest, because just like we learned from the Olympic swimmer, if you do not get enough rest, pushing your body harder, faster, stronger will actually, in the long run, hurt you, not help you. It'll hurt your team, not help your team. Okay, so create seasons of rest and peak performance. Number two is really learning to harness the power of your female physiology. And so when we talk about creating seasons for your business, you can also create seasons based on the the seasons within your female cycle. So where men are more productive in a 24-hour period, women are more productive in a 28-day period. So you're going to have weeks, depending on where your hormones at and where you're at in your cycle, where you're more creative. You're going to have weeks where you just don't want to be around anybody and you're more critical. You're going to have days and weeks where you have the most energy and weeks where you have none. So really understanding your female cycle to allow yourself to listen to your body and to give yourself grace instead of trying to push yourself um, to do a specific thing because you put it on your calendar, even though your mind is not there, your body is not there. And then number three is really changing your belief about work-life balance. So work-life balance is kind of like one of those buzzwords, and people either love it or they hate it, or they believe in it or they don't. But I just want to encourage you to change your belief and your perspective about work-life balance. Um, because work-life balance doesn't mean that everything's going to be 50-50 all day, every day. It doesn't mean work-life balance doesn't mean you do 50% of your time is spent at work and 50% of your time is spent in other things, life, right? That's not what work-life balance means. Work-life balance really comes by understanding your energy, what gives you energy, what drains your energy, and learning to balance those two things. And again, I'll talk about more, we'll dig into more details of this in future episodes, but today I just kind of want to give you an overall picture of what this looks like. But ask yourself, what do you believe about work-life balance? Do you believe it exists or do you not believe it exists? Do you believe that you have to push your body and your mind and your heart in order to have success? Or do you believe that you can have success without sacrificing yourself and what's most important to you? And then last but not least, tackle your fear of releasing control. So for high achievers, high performers, we are really good at doing everything ourselves. Outsourcing, delegating, automating can be really hard for high performers, high achievers, because we often get stuck in the nobody can do it as well as I can, or I'm failing if I can't do all the things all the time. Work-life balance is knowing that you can have all the things, you can do it all, but you cannot do it all at the same time. That's really what it comes down to. And that starts by recognizing, like, what am I afraid to release control of? Why is it hard for me to delegate or automate, whether that's in your life and asking your spouse or your kids to do something, or outsourcing meals or whatever that is? It really comes down to what are the limiting beliefs that are there? What are you? And actually, we just hosted a retreat, and one of the gals there, she's in the middle of finishing a program, a schooling, because she wants to become a health coach. And she keeps putting it off because she hears her grandma in the background saying, like, you have to have the perfectly clean house, and you have to cook all the meals homemade, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, right? So it's not her husband or her kids that are saying you need to do these things. It's a expectation that she's putting on herself because of how she was raised and the example that she saw before her. um, so really understanding, why do you make the decisions that you make? And are you making decisions are you making fear-based decisions, or are you making decisions from a place of peace and confidence? Um, so all four of those can, one, help you prevent burnout for sure if you are proactive, and two, they can also help you overcome burnout. Now, here's what I want to say about overcoming burnout. If you are truly in burnout, it's not just something that you're going to snap your finger and you're going to go and you're going to say, okay, check it off the list. I did that, check it off the list. I did that. And you're just all of a sudden going to feel better. No. Can you feel better right out of the gates? Yes, 100%. Will you overcome burnout in a week? No, absolutely not. It takes time. It takes figuring out how to make things run more efficiently. It takes figuring out why you're saying yes to the things that you're doing. It takes getting down to your values and your priorities, and it takes prioritizing yourself, because as high achieving women, we typically put ourselves last. We take care of our clients, we take care of our family, we take care of our employees, we take care of the business, and then we put ourselves last. And then if we have time for ourselves, then we'll take care of ourselves. And that is the number one problem that I see within women that pushes them to the brink of burnout, to the point where they're like, I just want to shut my business down. I don't want to do this anymore. My life sucks. We don't want that. There is hope for you. One, you don't have to hit burnout to have success. Two, you can overcome burnout and you can get to the other side of it, and you can feel better and know that there is hope on the other side and continue to scale and grow your business if that's what you choose, without sacrificing yourself or what is most important to you. So I hope that helps. I'm going to just recap here one more time. Again, create seasons of rest and peak performance for your business and your life. Number two, harness the power of your female physiology. Number three, change your belief about work-life balance. Number three, tackle your fear of releasing control. I hope that those tips were helpful for you, and just got you thinking about this in a little different way. If you find that you're needing support and you're needing help, and maybe you know that you need to change, something needs to change, but you don't know how, I invite you to book a discovery call with us. It's free, and we just talk about what's working well and not what's not working well, where you're at and where you want to go. And I always like to ask my clients at their intake, I always ask clients this: what would you do differently if you had 1 year to live? So that's something you can just ask yourself right now. What would you do differently if you had 1 year to live? It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to go out and uh, do that thing. Say maybe you're like, I'm going to travel, I'm going to shut my business down and travel to Europe, right? Maybe that's not realistic, but we can use that to pull out what's really important to you and what you really want out of your life. And then when you have your sight set on that thing and you get really clear on what's really important to you, then we can reverse engineer from there and look at the ways to make everything run more efficiently so that you can step away from your business more, so that you can empower the people around you, so you can create a better work-life balance, not only for yourself, but for your team members as well. If you are interested in that, you can find information in the show notes, and I will be back with you another solo episode. We will be talking more. We'll get more nitty gritty into some of these things. But for today, I just wanted to really give you an overview, and just instill hope in you that you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. And I just hope that this episode blesses you, and you're able to take this and just implement it in your life. I want to invite you to check out our mastermind, our Success Without Sacrifice mastermind that's coming up in October. We intentionally named it Success Without Sacrifice, not because of our business name, but because the mastermind program is designed to help you achieve the success you want without sacrificing yourself and what is most important to you. If you resonated with this episode about burnout, if you're feeling you're either on the brink of that, you want to prevent it, or you need to overcome burnout, we invite you to check out this mastermind. It's a combination of one-on-one coaching where we're going to be walking you through exactly how to do this, helping your team Tara is going to be helping with marketing if that's a need that you have. And then we're also going to have a group incubator where we have other female insurance agency owners coming in and learning from each other, industry experts that are going to be training. So we invite you to check that out. We have $500 off right now if you check that out, and you can get the details of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining today's episode. I hope it was helpful for you, and we'll Thank you so much for listening to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast today. We know there is a lot on your plate, so it means the world to us that you stopped in to give us a listen. We hope you will join us each week as we dive into topics such as mindset, goal setting, productivity, self-care, and so much more. We want to inspire more women to have success without sacrificing what is most important to them, and we need your help. If this podcast has inspired you, would you do us a favor? Would you take a minute to leave us a rating and review or share with your friends? Let's change the face of insurance for women. Until next time.